while percentage of power consumption for data centers has remained flat at 1%. What is the percent change with energy types? I.e., if it was previously 90% fossil, what's it now?
Yeah, I mean, great question. So globally, electricity is getting cleaner every year. So in most regions, we're seeing more renewables, less coal. And I think COVID-19 actually has accelerated some of these trends. So our latest data shows that for the first time, coal consumption or coal for electricity and low carbon electricity, so like renewables, nuclear, are at the same level for the first time in a long time in 2019 and 2020 with reduced electricity demand from COVID and lockdowns. Renewables is going to jump ahead by about 6%. So I think renewables will be around 40%, coal will be down to about 34%. So we're seeing good progress, especially in electricity. So it's going to get cleaner. Well, it's been cleaner since 2010. So I think about 10% less CO2 per unit of electricity being consumed since 2010. So good news there. And then I think this trend will only continue to accelerate. So we're going to see even less coal going into the future and then more renewables ramping up. So yeah, I think the good news is that even if we kept electricity demand flat, the GHG emissions are actually going down because of the electricity that the data centers rely on. Some places it's moving even faster. So China, we have data showing emissions intensity dropping by 20% over the last decade. The US, 23%, I think largely credit to natural gas displacing coal, but then also the huge growth in renewables there. And in the EU, 22%. So I think we'll continue to see these trends, and it's really good to see that hyperscalers are trying to locate in regions where we're seeing a lot of renewable potential, right? So we're seeing growth in Ireland, Denmark, Sweden, these places, which, cooler climates, plus a lot of wind resources or existing hydro sources like in Sweden.
Can I ask you one personal question with regard to trust in a world where it's hard to trust with so much data? Can we trust the numbers? Because this is something we must trust, because we can't go to 2050 and go, oh, if we only had known. The numbers you mentioned there, 20% decrease, 23% in North America, etc. Are we happy enough as a global citizenship to be able to say they're real, accurate, and we're on the right path?
Yeah, so the IEA, we do a lot of work on data. So I think that would be our core business. So working with our governments to collect data, on energy balances, flows of energy coming in and out of their economies. And then we do a lot of validation as well and model that and see, are these numbers right? And then kind of do a lot of work to verify those numbers. So, yeah. And, other agencies, the U.S. Energy Information Administration, other groups are out there modeling these things as well. And I think the story is pretty consistent on the electricity side.
Excellent.
But I mean, this is where I think digital technologies could have a big impact, right? So right now we're relying on statistics, but in the future, could we use satellite data to better track methane emissions or even real-time CO2 emissions from power plants? Yeah. That we're currently estimating or basing on certain assumptions.
It brings us back to technology and data, and the data needs centers, and the centers should be more efficient, and then we have a carbon-free spreadsheet.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's interesting because only the other day, I don't have it here, but we have the extensive rollout of our new smart metering system for electricity. And the headline, I may have said it before, the headline on it is to reduce the carbon intensity of our grid because of a smart meter. And that's exactly what you're talking about. We can have smart data to be able to act on in real time rather than finding out a year later or 6 months later when we should have or could have. So, okay. So let me.
Sorry. Yeah. Maybe one more thing to add to that. So I know companies, so you talked about, scope 1, 2, 3 emissions. And then there's, some really exciting announcements coming out now from some of these big tech companies about how they plan to reach, 24/7 carbon-free energy, right? So Google had this announcement, I think last week, 2 weeks ago, to reach 24/7 carbon-free by 2030, which is, I think, very ambitious. So, you know, there are regions where they're operating where, you know, the grid is like 10% renewables or low carbon. So they're going to have to, you know, so you talked about supply chain and the incredible challenges there that, you know, companies like Apple and I think Microsoft are going to do as they're trying to reach net zero across all their supply chains. But then, you know, this kind of the electricity system, how can companies like Google, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon work with those electricity systems to reduce the carbon intensity of those grids for all users, right? So not just, you know, like buying a PPA as they've done in the past, but, you know, how can they accelerate the low carbon energy options that we have? So I think they have a big role to play there as well in broader energy policy, and it's exciting to see them get involved there.